Kachi once believed in forever. When she met Nathan, it felt like the universe had finally aligned just for her. He was gentle, thoughtful, and patient. Everything she'd ever prayed for. They laughed together, traveled, danced in the kitchen, and whispered dreams into each other's ears on sleepless nights. When they got married, it was the kind of wedding people whispered about long after the day ended. Love seemed thick in the air, almost visible. And soon they had 2 children, Math, the curious and quiet boy who loved numbers and puzzles, and Kharis, the girl with the eyes of her mother and the fire of her father. But love, Kachi learned, could die quietly. The marriage broke down slowly, through unspoken words, hurtful silence, unmet needs, and growing resentment. Nathan tried, he really did. He bought flowers, booked weekend getaways, even sat through therapy sessions he didn't understand. But it wasn't enough. Not for Kachi. She wanted something more, or maybe something else. The breakup was bitter. Courtrooms, lawyers, accusations, tears. In the end, Kachi won custody of the kids. People said she should be happy, but she wasn't. Every time she looked at Math, she saw Nathan's eyes, soft, forgiving, always watching. Every time Kharis smiled, it was Nathan's smile, hopeful, trusting, painful. Kachi didn't say it out loud, but in her heart, a darkness grew. She resented her own children, not because they were bad, but because they reminded her of a love that failed, a man she couldn't stop remembering, and a version of herself she no longer recognized. Math was only 8, but he understood silence in a way most adults didn't. His mother rarely raised her voice. She didn't need to. Her absence said enough. The way she walked past him without looking. The way she served dinner without asking if he liked it. The way she said his name like it was a chore. Kharis, younger and more sensitive, tried harder. She left drawings on her mother's pillow, picked flowers from the schoolyard and snuck them into her purse. "I love you, Mommy," she'd whisper at night, hoping it would thaw something. But it never did. Kachi wasn't cruel, not outwardly. She fed them, clothed them, paid their school fees, but her heart was far away, locked in a room where Nathan still lived, pacing, apologizing, loving her in all the ways she no longer wanted. Sometimes, at night, Math would sit on the floor of his room with his calculator and a piece of paper, solving equations to distract himself from the quiet fights happening in the air between them all. Kharis, in the next room, clutched a stuffed rabbit Nathan gave her before the court ruling, whispering stories to it. Stories where their family was still whole, and laughter still lived in the kitchen. Nathan, meanwhile, had moved into a SM all-apartment across town. He wasn't allowed to see the kids often. Kachi made sure of that. But every time he did, every supervised visit, every birthday, every awkward school play, he looked at them like they were treasure. He'd kneel to their height, look into their eyes, and remind them in small ways, "You are loved, deeply, always." Math never said much during these visits, but his grip on Nathan's hand said what words couldn't. Kharis would cry after every goodbye, and Kachi, she watched from afar, arms crossed, heart torn, because deep down, the woman who once loved Nathan still lived inside her, and she hated that she couldn't kill that part of herself completely. Cracks in the mirror. Kachi wasn't always like this. Once upon a time, she believed in softness, in warmth, in second chances. But life had a way of teaching brutal lessons to those who loved too deeply. Before Nathan, there was someone else, a man with a charming smile and a poisonous soul. He made her feel seen, at first. Then he made her feel small, broken, and crazy. It took her years to leave, and longer to heal. When Nathan came into her life, she wasn't ready, but he was kind. He didn't push. He waited, loved her through her fears, built a home brick by brick out of trust and patience. Kachi tried to love him right. She really did. But when small cracks appeared, when he forgot an anniversary, when he didn't answer her calls quickly enough, her mind returned to old wounds. She began to see betrayal where there was none. She built walls even Nathan couldn't climb. By the time the kids came, Kachi was already hollow in places she couldn't name. She thought motherhood would fix it. That love for her children would fill the parts Nathan couldn't reach. but it didn't. Math started growing distant. He stopped trying to make his mother smile. He stopped asking questions. At school, teachers called him gifted but emotionally closed off. He preferred numbers to people. Equations never left. They never yelled. They never judged. Kharis, however, kept trying. She believed in love the way little girls do, with wide eyes and boundless hope. But each rejection from her mother chipped away at her light. She started to stutter when nervous, started wetting the bed again, though she never told anyone. At night, they would lie awake in silence. 2 children in the same house, learning too early how to navigate heartbreak. One day, Math asked Kachi, "Do you love us?" She didn't answer right away. Her lips moved, her eyes blinked, but the words didn't come. He didn't ask again. Nathan, though legally pushed away, never gave up. He documented every visit, every moment. He spoke to lawyers. He visited counselors. He wrote letters to Math and Kharis every week, even if they never got them. Sometimes he would stand across the street from the schoolyard just to watch them play from afar. It wasn't fair, he knew that, but he couldn't let go. Not of them. He knew something was wrong in Kachi's house. He could see it in the way Math wouldn't meet his eyes anymore, in the way Kharis flinched at loud noises. But the system didn't listen. Kachi had no visible bruises. The house was clean. The kids were fed. Still, he waited, hoping, planning, loving from a distance. It started with a phone call. Kachi was in a meeting when the school called. She ignored it. Then a second call. Then a third. She picked up, annoyed, until she heard the voice on the other end. "Kharis had an episode during art class. She's safe now, but we think she had a panic attack." Kachi didn't know how she got to the school. She didn't remember grabbing her keys or driving. But suddenly she was there, standing outside the nurse's office, staring through the small glass window. Kharis sat on the bed, eyes swollen from crying, fingers clenched around the stuffed rabbit Nathan gave her years ago. She looked so small, so fragile. And when she saw her mother, she looked afraid. That look broke something in Kachi. Later that night, after the kids had gone to bed, Kachi stood in the hallway staring at their closed doors. Her hands trembled. Her heart felt like it was screaming. She walked into Math's room. He was awake, pretending not to be. She sat beside him, unsure what to say. He didn't look at her. But after a long silence, she said, "I don't know how to love right anymore." Math turned to her. His eyes didn't carry hate, just a tired kind of sadness no child should know. "We're still here," he whispered, "but we won't always be." 3 days later, Nathan received a call from the school counselor. "She's not abusing them," the woman clarified. "But the children, they're emotionally neglected, especially Kharis. They need therapy. They need stability." Nathan took a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "What are my options?" "You could file for a change in custody. We'll testify if needed. But it won't be easy." He nodded. "Nothing with Kachi ever is." But this wasn't about Kachi anymore. This was about 2 children losing pieces of themselves in silence, and he wouldn't let that happen. Not again. When Kachi received the legal documents, she didn't scream. She didn't cry. She laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Of course he wants them now," she muttered to no one. "When I've done the hard part, when I've kept them alive." But a deeper voice inside her, the one she'd buried long ago, asked a quieter question. "Have you really?" That night, she stood outside Kharis's door, listening to the sound of her daughter singing softly to herself. Then Math's room, where the boy she once held against her chest now whispered numbers like prayers. For the first time in years, Kachi cried, not out of anger, not out of guilt, but because she knew if she didn't change, she would lose them. Forever. The courtroom wasn't cold, but Kachi felt frozen. Nathan sat across from her, his jaw tight, his eyes steady. Not hateful, not bitter, just tired and determined. The counselor from the school spoke, the teachers, the pediatrician, No one accused Kachi of abuse, but every word painted the same picture: a house filled with silence, a mother drowning in her own ghosts, and 2 children trying to love through the cracks. Kachi said little. She didn't cry. She didn't defend herself. She just stared at her hands thinking, I built this. All of it. The judge didn't rule immediately. He wanted a psychological evaluation, a social worker's home visit, more time. But Nathan was granted temporary joint custody. When he hugged Math and Kharis outside the courthouse, Kachi didn't stop him. She didn't stop the tears either. Therapy wasn't Kachi's idea. It was the court's. But she went. At first, she sat on the couch with her arms crossed, speaking in half sentences. But the therapist didn't push. She waited, listened. Until one day, Kachi said, I think I resent them because they remind me I failed. Failed as a mother? The therapist asked. Kachi shook her head slowly. As a woman, as a wife, as a person. And with that, the flood began. Each week, Kachi peeled off another layer. Her past, her wounds, the lies she told herself just to survive. She talked about the man before Nathan, the damage, the walls, the fear of softness. She began journaling. She stopped drinking. She started talking to her kids again, not as a duty, but with effort. And one day, Kharis hugged her without flinching. Math had always seen the world differently. One day, during a school visit, he brought his teacher a project, a graph. On one axis, he labeled time. On the other, feelings. Each point showed how happy or sad he'd felt week by week. The line dipped and rose until it started climbing steadily around the time the custody battle began. His teacher asked, "What changed here?" He pointed to the graph. Dad came back. Mom started talking. Then, after a long pause, he whispered, "I think we're healing." It wasn't just numbers anymore. It was hope, charted and visible. One evening, while Nathan was cooking dinner, Kharis walked into the kitchen and said, "I want to stay with Mommy more." Nathan froze. "Why?" he asked gently. "Because she's trying now, and she's sad a lot, but when I hug her, she breathes different." Nathan knelt beside her, heart aching. "You don't have to choose," he said softly. "You can love us both." "I do," she smiled. "But I think Mommy's scared, and I'm not scared anymore." Months passed. Kachi stood outside Nathan's place, watching the kids run toward her. They smiled now, not out of obligation, but out of something real. "Hey," Nathan said, stepping beside her. She nodded. "Hey?" They stood in silence for a moment, watching their children argue over whose turn it was to sit in the front seat. "I'm sorry," Kachi finally whispered, "for everything." Nathan turned to her, eyes soft. "I know, and thank you for fighting your way back." They weren't in love anymore, but they were something else now. 2 wounded people learning to raise whole children. Together. The sun poured through the wide windows of the university auditorium. People were filing into rows, clutching programs and tissues, adjusting camera lenses and buttoning suits. Nathan sat in the 3rd row, holding Kachi's hand. They weren't together, hadn't been for years. But in that moment, they were united by something far deeper than romance: pride. On the stage, Math stood in his graduation robe, delivering a speech as valedictorian, still quiet, still composed. But now, his voice carried confidence. "My mother taught me that healing is possible, even when you think the pieces are too broken to fit. And my father taught me that love never walks away, not real love." Kachi wiped her eyes. Nathan smiled through his tears. Behind them, a young woman, bold, radiant, full of fire, waited for her cue. Kharis was the lead performer in the closing music act. She had become an artist, a storyteller, a soul on fire. Her smile could light up the world. Before stepping onto the stage, she turned to the side and waved at her parents. Kachi waved back, heart full. In a quiet whisper, she said to Nathan, "We didn't ruin them." "No," he said. We gave them the tools to become better than we ever were.